traditionally there's a kind of treatment first kind of approach where people who are providers of housing or boarding houses, that kind of thing, will say you can only come in if you stop taking your drug and alcohol, or you've done a detox, or you've had some kind of mental health treatment. So it's treatment first and then we get you the housing. Whereas what's starting to become more acknowledged, and what homeless people themselves are clearly saying, is that they need housing first, that actually having some sort of security, somewhere they can call their own, put their belongings, invite someone in or keep people out, all of those things are actually really important to them then becoming mentally well and being able to sort of go and access other services. So the housing first approach is something that's certainly being looked at now, particularly under the new the Road Home, which is the government's white paper on homelessness. There's a lot of new policy that is being developed and being researched. It's a very active area of work at the moment. Also, people who have been homeless and are in some kind of accommodation, they don't just need a house or a roof over their heads, they need a lot of added support to keep their well-being and their resilience. If people are in the business of providing housing, they are going to have some tenants that suffer from sort of various mental health problems. It would be really nice if there was some kind of, education around what people might be experiencing, so that the provider of the housing doesn't attribute things to that person just being really slack or disorganised or what have you, but has a better understanding about why the person might be having problems. But then outside of that relationship, I think the answers lie in other community sort of supports.
Thanks to the housing support of the Stepping Stone Clubhouse, Rich now has a place he's proud to call home. In the past, he lived in a hostel that worsened his depression and anxiety.
What most people think of when they hear the word homeless is sort of rough sleepers or people who are sleeping out in sort of public places, and they're actually the minority of the homeless population. A lot of them are sort of invisible, so they're couch surfing, they're staying with extended family and friends, they're just unstable and transient in their place of residence. And then there are people who are in homeless shelters and services and boarding houses and sort of that sort of temporary transient group.
For 18 months I lived in a hostel. It was not a good place for me to be. The walls were thin, there was shouting, there was arguments every night almost. The subjects of discussion were basically along the lines of someone was creating artworks on the toilet wall using their own feces, or there were drugs or alcohol in the house. There were cockroaches, mice, lice. The mattress was old. It was probably full of bed bugs. I certainly remember waking up with lots of little bites and markings on my arms from various creatures that interfered with my sleep. The room that I had within the space was small. I could touch one wall with one hand, stretch out and almost touch the other. It was very confining, very claustrophobic. Added to the noise that was in the general household, it was not a very happy place for me to be. With my anxiety and depression, it did affect me in adverse ways.
Working closely with Leif, it took Rich 18 months to get the keys to his own apartment. He moved in about 6 months ago.
When I get home, I usually head straight for the kitchen. It has all the best things I have, especially my stove. I love my stove. I love to cook. I haven't been able to cook when I was homeless, when I was in the hostel. I suppose my favourite thing to cook is a nice juicy steak. I like this place. It's a comfortable environment. It's a nice spot. It's relatively close to the public transport. I've got a few things I'd like to have done to the place to make it a little bit more livable. Maybe get some pictures up on the wall, a bit of carpeting. But all I need to do really is just look after the place. It shouldn't be that hard.